Here at the Banff Centre, one of the foundational programs that actually started the centre off is opera. And now, 92 years into the Banff Centre, that legacy continues with the latest iteration of opera studies here at the Banff Centre, which is called Interplay, a sort of cross-pollination between opera and chamber music. I'm joined this morning by the director for opera here at the Banff Centre, Joel Ivany, who also is the artistic director of Edmonton Opera. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you too.
So, first of all, for somebody who has never experienced opera in a Banff Centre context, it's not on the main stage in Edmonton or at the Centennial Concert Hall in Winnipeg. What does opera look like here?
That's a great question, Nolan. I think over the years, we've kind of asked that question and kind of put it everywhere at Banff Centre. So, we have a wonderful theater, the Jenny Bellsberg Theater, which was renovated a few years ago and is one of the premier theaters. I would say it's intimate, it's accessible, it's right, like you can almost touch the musicians, you're so close, but it still has about just under 600 people. So that's an incredible jewel box space. It also has the Margaret Greenham Theatre, which is about a 200-seat theater. But we've also done opera at the Cave and Basin, which is the first National Historic Site in Canada, just across the way. It's so hard not to be inspired by the trees
right
and the
back
surroundings that Banff has. And so we've done operas outside. There's a history at Banff Centre in the 70s where they did an opera on Lake Minnewanka. So it's kind of Banff and opera and music. It's kind of, you ask the questions and anything is possible.
You mentioned the history there of opera here at the Banff Centre, and it's really interesting because you're somebody who also is a bit of a student of opera and its relationship to Canada.
Yes.
How have opera studies evolved here at the Banff Centre over the years?
So it started in terms of just training the voice, which was a big part of, and training Canadian voices was a big part of what a lot of Europeans brought over to Canada to say, this is a beautiful country, how do we kind of formalize this a bit more? And that started with sort of the training that happened here at Banff Centre in terms of voices. People used to come for months to kind of hang out in the woods and kind of work on your craft. So Mary Morrison was a teacher here. Barbara Hannigan was like a very young singer who came here. And if you kind of look across all the Canadian companies, everyone has a connection to Banff Centre at some point, either as a stagehand or as a singer, and they're now kind of general directors and running these things.
So you've been the person running this thing here at the Banff Centre for just over a decade now, I think 12 years.
Yeah.
What was opera like when you first arrived here at the Banff Centre, and how has it evolved under your leadership?
So when I arrived, it was just at the end of doing sort of a traditional large, 2 years before I'd done Così fan tutte in the theater with a student orchestra, great cast, and they wanted to go in a different direction when I arrived, and so we did what I called #Uncle John, which was Don Giovanni, but done in modern day language and with a string quartet, and everyone came to a wedding. So the decor, the invitation, the audience, when you scanned your ticket, you got a champagne glass because it was the reception for the wedding. So it's kind of
cool.
That's how it kind of went, and that kind of opened the door to my mind and to everyone about, at this phase right now, this kind of indie opera charge kind of, not arrived, but grew out of that.
So when people hear the term indie opera, that's a very sort of interesting image that sort of conjures up. And it's something that you have been involved with quite a lot in your career, not just here at the Banff Centre, but also running something called Against the Grain Theatre. The notion of an indie opera is really interesting. And I'm wondering if you can maybe talk a little bit about what that maybe looks like on a stage and how maybe it's not just a small version of a grand opera, but also there's new productions that are being developed for a sort of smaller scale audience.
I think taking that mentality, that idea of chamber is not bad, it's not second, it's to me, it's just as equal as the large.
Sure.
And we can really kind of hone in and give the audience a different experience. So the last few years we've done like workshops of chamber works as well. And so last year we had a workshop of 2 operas, 1 act of The Handmaid's Tale and a new arrangement, and another opera called Indians on Vacation. And so those were meant to be chamber sized, and at Banff Centre this year we're seeing one of them kind of be fully realized with a full set and full team and all that stuff. So that's kind of exciting.
So it's amazing to also have like a Canadian story being told here at a Canadian iconic sort of a venue. Maybe you can talk a little bit about The Handmaid's Tale and why that was the choice to workshop here and now to perform in its entirety this summer.
You kind of go back. Margaret Atwood is a Canadian legend. Of her many works, which I read through high school, like that's where my first introduction was. The Handmaid's Tale is a seminal book. Like it was kind of one of those landmark books, which has kind of had these surges of refocus and popularity, I guess you could say. And so I've seen this opera twice in 2 different American cities. Once San Francisco Opera, big, and once in a gym at Harvard. So I've seen the 2 kind of extremes of what you can do. And this is going to be another one where it takes this sadly very contemporary story and is kind of chilling in how it could feel like we are living in the prologue, so to speak, of what that could be. We hope that we will learn and go different ways, but I don't know, history can repeat itself. So
it's certainly something that you look at the state of the world and you think, wow, Handmaid's Tale, maybe this is more apropos than maybe we would like.
Yes.
Is that part of the calculus when you're deciding to choose a show that you're saying, man, I hope we can create something that speaks into the current sort of social conversation, or is it more a sense of this is an iconic Canadian story, iconic Canadian author, and it makes just all the sense in the world to do it here at an iconic Canadian venue?
It's a great story. It's a great place. Yeah, I think like you said, and for this music is challenging. It's not like the tunes of La Boheme. So I think for young singers and the participants in this program to kind of interact with this music in a very safe and supportive way, I think adds to their toolbox as well. So it's kind of, if I can sing this, I can sing anything. So it kind of introduces like the composer is living, which is always a good thing as well, to have that interaction or to have that interaction with the music as well. So a bit of both, and yes, I think just now's a great time, and I think we're excited. Yeah.
What maybe we've mentioned a couple times how iconic this venue is, and the of course timeless nature, sadly, of this story of The Handmaid's Tale. What do you think makes Canadian opera Canadian, as you are creating pieces here done by Canadian composers and shaping the Canadian voices that perform here in Canada and go out all over the world? Big galaxy brain question there.
Yeah, because I've struggled with that quite a bit. I think, the last few years I've been really focused on identity and what that means. And we want to classify things, we want to label things. And is that truly the best way? I was not arguing, I was having a nice discourse with someone around, can we just not call this opera? Like, does it have to have these labels associated to further refine what it is? In some ways, yes, whether that's Italian opera, whether that is Indigenous opera, whether that is, but to me, opera's opera, and we should just get excited about that. And whether that is the birthplace of a composer or is it the librettist, I don't know. I used to be much stronger feelings about it, but I feel like we could be getting in the weeds a little bit in some ways. But we have a high contingent of Canadians singing in this, producing it, creatively directing it. So I think, to me, that makes it pretty Canadian.
We'll meet some of those voices and those creatives creating The Handmaid's Tale in the coming weeks as Classic 107 broadcasts from the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity. Joel Ivany, Director of Opera, thank you so much for walking us through The Handmaid's Tale, but also opera here at the Banff Centre.
Thank you, Nolan.